What's up, Marvel fans? I'm Steven from the Hills Maniacs, and these are what I felt were the 5 worst movies from phases 4 and 5 of the MCU. Now, if you didn't catch the basically part 1 that I did of this video where I talked about what I felt were the 5 best movies from phases 4 and 5, I put that up in January, so go check that out if you haven't seen it yet, if you want to see what I felt were the 5 best from phases 4 and 5. But throughout this year, I'm also going to be doing a bunch of videos pertaining to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we get ready for Avengers Doomsday at the end of the year in December. Things kind of like this with like different lists. Like I'll probably talk about the characters that were introduced in phases 4 and 5, that kind of stuff. I've talked a lot about, phases 1, 2, and 3 over the years, so I decided to kind of go back and look through phases 4 and 5 since those were the most recent phases, and those ones are kind of what's been building to Avengers Doomsday. It all started kind of with WandaVision and up through, I think it was Ironheart was the last one technically considered for phase 4, or phase 5, I mean. And the Fantastic Four movie obviously started, phase 6. So we're currently in phase 6 as of this recording for the MCU. So that's kind of why I'm doing these videos. So starting off at number 5 for me on this list is going to be Captain America Brave New World. Now, I did enjoy this movie. Like, it still felt like a Captain America movie, but I think where its biggest issue was that it also tried to be like a Hulk movie. Like, you have the President Ross, getting turned into the Red Hulk and everything. The leader is the villain of it, that kind of stuff. It like felt like they wanted to make a Hulk movie, but they couldn't, or like Marvel doesn't have the rights, I guess, to make a Hulk exclusive movie, because the Incredible Hulk was made by a different studio, I guess, still working with Marvel or something like that. So they kind of did it under the guise of a Captain America movie, and you get a lot of those elements in this where it felt like Bruce Banner should have been in this movie instead of Captain America. But the whole plot of like somebody basically brainwashing and manipulating these super soldiers to attack the government and that kind of thing, I thought was an interesting concept. It almost felt like what they did with Captain America the Winter Soldier, with the whole Hydra plot and everything, with Hydra invading S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, this kind of felt like almost something like that, except it also had to cram in all the Hulk elements to it as well, which is why I kind of felt like it wasn't one of their best movies. But I think for the first outing, with Sam Wilson as Captain America, I think it went all right. Like, they could have probably maybe done something along the lines of, like, maybe there were still some rogue Hydra agents out there that managed to escape getting captured by the government in Winter Soldier and have been kind of out on the loose all these years, and they're trying to get revenge on the government and everything, or continue to exact Hydra's plan. Maybe they could have done something along those lines, but I still think it was a decent movie. It still felt like a Captain America movie, but the problem with all those Hulk things added in there and stuff kind of felt tacked on and almost made it feel like Captain America didn't belong in a movie that's called Captain America. Coming in at number 4 on this list is The Marvels. I thought the concept of Kamala Khan, Monica Rambeau, and Carol Danvers, swapping places every time that they use their powers and stuff because they have this cosmic connection, I thought that was really interesting, and I wish they would have just done that for the whole movie, but it kind of gets, resolved a little bit too quickly, and it's no longer a hurdle that the characters need to work through. That, like, maybe they could have made that the whole thing of the movie. Like, they keep ending up in these scenarios that they're not familiar with because they keep switching places with each other until they can find each other and get to where they're supposed to be and, like, meet each other so that they're no longer swapping places or something. They could have made some kind of threat that, like, isn't necessarily tying them all together, but, like, they all have to fight against because they keep switching places. And they did that for a majority of the movie, but that became like sort of a subplot compared to the overall story that they were trying to tell in that movie. Like, I think that would be something interesting they could have stuck with, where, like, that's what those characters have to go through now, from now on. In every movie we see them in together, they switch places every time they use their powers, and they have to come up with different fighting styles and fight patterns and everything to kind of work around that. It would have been interesting to see them carry that forward, but the fact that they ended it so early, I feel like, is where it's kind of a problem in this movie. That's kind of why I didn't enjoy the movie as much. That was more interesting than the actual villain of the movie, like Dar-Ben, who's trying to get revenge for the Kree because Captain Marvel shut down and killed the Supreme Intelligence. Like them having to deal with swapping places and not knowing what's going on, not knowing why they're connected to each other. They could have made it this sort of fun mystery movie where they have to figure out how to find each other, where each of them is, and figure out what's going on, why they're all connected, instead of kind of shoehorning in another villain for them to face. I did like the dynamic between the three actors, though. I think Amon Vellani especially, even in the Miss Marvel series, she's appealing because of the way she's a fangirl for everything that's going on. She's like what we would be if we met a superhero, but she also is a superhero. And that kind of carried forward into this movie as well, and I thought it was really enjoyable. Next up at number 3 is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I mean, where do I begin with this one? A lot of people had issues with this movie. I think the biggest issue, obviously, we'll just discuss that one now, is the fact that they kind of butchered Kang the Conqueror in a way. Kang was being set up from the Loki series first and then into Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Kang was being set up as the next big bad of the MCU. He was supposed to be the next Thanos level threat that the Avengers would have to face later on down the line. Obviously you have all the time travel stuff, and there's different variants of Kang and all that kind of stuff. And I liked where it was sort of building all of that. This was the first real version of Kang that we were seeing so far where he feels threatening. Even He Who Remains in the Loki series, while he did, it feels kind of threatening because he's, controlling everything, basically. Controlling the timelines, having them flow into one sacred timeline. That is kind of scary to think about. But the way Jonathan Majors, portrayed Kang the Conqueror in Quantumania versus, the Loki series and everything, the various different versions of the character that he had to play, I thought he did a nice job with that. And this one really felt really menacing, this version of Kang the Conqueror, he took over the quantum realm and all that kind of stuff. The people in the quantum realm fear him and that sort of thing. But even with all of that, he almost feels like a wasted one-off villain because of everything that happened, obviously, Jonathan Majors' arrest and that kind of stuff. They had to change their plans for the future of Kang the Conqueror, So we never really got to see sort of the follow-up to this, but the fact that they made him defeated by the ants and defeated by Ant-Man, who's supposed to be a low-level hero, basically, just didn't really sit right with a lot of people, and I kind of understand why. It felt anticlimactic, and it kind of didn't do him justice. He's supposed to be this big threatening villain that the Avengers can't even defeat, and then Ant-Man's just here defeating him. If Ant-Man can beat him, anybody can. It kind of just, they kind of ruined what they were going for with Kang. Even if they had continued and followed up with the Kang story and everything coming out of this movie, I feel like it didn't do a good job of portraying Kang, because now any variants we see, we know, oh, Ant-Man can defeat him, that kind of thing. I did like the way that they kind of showed the quantum city inside the quantum realm and everything, and all the interesting little characters that existed in the quantum realm that were living in that city. I thought all of that was really cool, and it was kind of something different that you're not used to seeing. We see these kind of colorful characters and locations in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and stuff. So to have that show up in an Ant-Man movie, it almost felt like they were in space compared to just being still on Earth, but really small, down in the quantum realm. It added, a new location to the MCU that we haven't seen yet, and maybe they'll go back to there someday. Maybe we'll get to see more of the quantum realm. That was all interesting. It was just kind of wasted in this movie that wasn't really that great. Next up at number 2 on this list, I have the Eternals movie. I think the biggest problem with this movie is that they tried to cram too much into it. Because they had to give us a backstory for these characters in the span of 2 hours, while also trying to make it a modern story set in the modern day MCU with a modern day plot at the same time. So we get flashbacks to different things that were happening, different things the Eternals have done over the years, on Earth, mixed with them also having this current threat that they're trying to deal with at the same time. And it just kind of felt like this big mess. Like maybe they should have done like a Disney Plus series or something first, where they could have explored each of the characters individually, or like explained more about who the Eternals are and the Celestials and all that kind of stuff before having this movie, so that we would get a better understanding of who these characters were and what all that kind of lore and everything that goes with them is all about. And the explanation of like why they didn't help, the Avengers against Thanos and everything kind of made them feel a little bit selfish. Like, oh, we just deal with our own thing. Like, we're dealing with the deviants. We don't interfere in things the Earth is dealing with. So it kind of made them seem like they don't actually care about the people of Earth, because they would have helped out in that case if they saw people disappearing and everything. So that didn't really make sense. They had to kind of explain that and sort of just like brush it under the rug, kind of, in a way, like, so that we wouldn't worry about or ask questions about why the Eternals wouldn't show up, since they're now telling us that they've been on Earth all these years. I think the simple fix for that would be for them to have just either had it set on another planet far off in the universe somewhere, and have them maybe come to Earth someday in another movie or something, or just have it set in the past and then nobody knew about the events that occurred. But then, obviously you couldn't get the whole Tiamat thing and the reveal of adamantium like we got in Captain America Brave New World, but they honestly, wouldn't have had to worry about that. And I don't think that was their plan originally when they made Eternals, like where they're planning like, oh, sometime in the future we're going to have this be the location of adamantium. Like, I don't think that was their plan when they originally made this movie. So I think that's why maybe people didn't necessarily enjoy it that much. I feel like there was a good concept in there somewhere of these beings that have like been building stuff all these years on Earth, or that are here to protect the celestial that's buried in all the planets and that kind of thing. All of that stuff was really interesting, but the explanation and backstory for it and everything was all crammed into what was supposed to be a modern day MCU movie, and that's where I felt the biggest issue was, and why maybe people didn't enjoy it as much. It was hard to understand with all of that going on at the same time, I feel like. And finally, at number 1 is the movie that I felt was the worst one to come out in Phase 4 and 5. That's Thor: Love and Thunder. I think I talked about this before. The biggest problem with this movie was that it was too much of a comedy. It took the good things from Thor Ragnarok, which was like the comedy, but also they had some seriousness in there as well, and these serious character moments for Thor and everything else, him discovering his powers and that stuff. They had all that in Thor Ragnarok along with the comedy. But in this movie, they just decided, oh, the comedy was the better portions of Thor Ragnarok, so we'll just do that again. So Taika Waititi just made this basically a comedy the entire way through, instead of what should have been a really serious movie. Like, someone is out there killing all these gods in the MCU, which should have been a serious thing, but every 5 seconds there's some kind of comedic moment going on with Thor or one of the other characters that it kind of undercut all of that. And Christian Bale's performance as Gore the God Butcher, I feel, was wasted in this movie too. Like, if they had just made this like almost like a dark sort of detective story with like Thor having to investigate who's killing all these gods, am I next, that kind of thing, and then to find out that it was Gore the God Butcher, I think that would have been a lot better of a movie, and it would have felt more like a Batman style sort of thing, because it seems like it was supposed to be this really dark movie. Like, Gore is a dark character. There was darkness around him every time we see him on screen. Like, the screen kind of goes black, and everything's like black and gray around him when Thor meets him and that kind of stuff. And he's like maniacal and everything else, almost like Christian Bale was playing a version of the Joker, but in the MCU. Like, I thought his performance as Gore was really well done, but they squandered it by putting it in a comedy movie. Like, you can't really take him serious if Thor is cracking jokes or having a subplot where with Stormbreaker being jealous of Mjolnir and that kind of stuff, and the whole Jane Foster thing. Like, it had too much comedy for a superhero movie, in my opinion. Like, it's fine if a superhero movie has a couple comedic moments here and there. That's what's made the MCU so great over the years, is the banter between the characters on screen. But having it take precedence over what should have been a really dark and serious movie is what kind of ruined it, in my opinion. I do hope we get to see Christian Bale again sometime in the future. Like, obviously, he's not going to play Gore the God Butcher, but maybe if he got to play somebody else, like, give him another chance to play an MCU character, because I felt like he did a nice job playing Gore. I just wish they wouldn't have wasted his talents and we get to see him again playing some other role in the MCU someday. But there you go, guys. Those were my picks for what I felt were the 5 worst MCU movies of Phases 4 and 5. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. Also, like I said, check out my 5 best movies from MCU from Phases 4 and 5 if you haven't seen that one yet. Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more, and check out all the other MCU content I will be uploading coming up in the future months up until Avengers Doomsday. And let me know what you felt was your favorite and least favorite movies from Phases 4 and 5, and what you're looking forward to the most in the future for the MCU. Thank you for watching the video, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.